If you want to know how this week's pizza began with a trip to the emergency room, stick around. Everyone's okay now, but unfortunately, one person was harmed in the making of this video. So before tuning in today, consider yourself warned. But don't worry, it's not nearly all bad news. Today, I'm making a roasted butternut squash pizza with Gruyère and sage, as well as a classic kale salad with pepper flakes, Parmesan, and lemon vinaigrette. I'll be walking you through the cooking process right here in my home kitchen and sharing the results. Both recipes are from Pizza Night by Stafford, which I am attempting to cook my way through. Hopefully this project and video series inspires you to start or continue on your own pizza making journey, or gets you inspired to pick up a cookbook off of your own shelves. And with that, it is time to go in depth. Hi, I'm Maddie Burton. I write a newsletter called On the Cusp, where I first talked about my goal to cook my way through this cookbook. I'm documenting that project here, and you can follow along on my newsletter or YouTube. I've been away from my kitchen these last few weeks on a big adventure to Edinburgh and the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and then on to Amsterdam. We did have some great pizza in Edinburgh, but for the most part, it's been a pizza-less month, which makes me especially excited to get back to this project. While I was away, Stafford, who wrote Pizza Night, published a baguette recipe using leftover rounds of pizza dough. And I have since tried my hand at making baguettes with extra pizza dough from this week's recipe. The results were incredible, so if you happen to be cooking through this book too, I would highly recommend giving that a shot. I'll link to her recipe and instructions below. All right, I won't bury the lead any further. This is actually my second attempt at making this pizza because the first attempt was marred by an ER visit. I'll keep it PG, but if you're squeamish, you might want to fast forward here. Consider this your public service announcement that the mandolin is a very sharp object and is capable of slicing through a fingertip, in this case, my boyfriend's. I was using the mandolin and its included safety guard to slice through butternut squash in thin, even, quarter-inch rounds for this week's recipe. And I was mentioning to him that squash is a pretty tough vegetable to cut through. So he stepped in to try and waved away the safety guard that I offered. I will let you fill in the rest with your imagination. Don't worry, he's fine now, but it was horrifying. So this means it is time for me to get back on the mandolin horse, face my newfound fears, and give this pizza another try. I chose this week's recipe by flipping to the fall section of the cookbook because that's the season that we were squarely in when we got back from vacation. Despite the association that it now shares with grave injury, I actually really love butternut squash, and Gruyère is probably my favorite cheese of all time, so this pizza called to me. Plus, I have some great memories of a butternut squash and sage recipe that I made using one of my first CSA boxes as a 22-year-old 15 years ago. This pizza was supposed to be made with rosemary, but Allie notes that you can also sub in something like sage, which I opted to do. I really do love rosemary, but I was just dreaming of that squash and sage flavor combination I had enjoyed all those years ago. There was one more thing that called to me in the head note of the pizza recipe. Allie mentioned that she was inspired by a recipe from Chez Panisse Vegetables, which made me remember Fanny at Chez Panisse, a children's book that I loved reading with my mom when I was a kid. That inspired me to kick off the fall pizza season with this specific pizza, and also to pull my copy of Fanny at Chez Panisse off the shelves and give it a reread. As always, before I jump into this week's recipes, let me share the receipts. Because in addition to showing you what it takes to make these recipes and what the results look like, I also enjoy telling you what it all actually cost. For 2 pizzas and a full batch of this week's salad, the bill came to around $45, which I think was pretty reasonable, especially since I have tons of leftover Parmesan for lots of other recipes. Because I already had a bunch of items in my pantry, the length of the ingredient list was pretty manageable too. All right, as I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna start by making the classic kale salad with pepper flakes, Parmesan, and lemon vinaigrette. Here's what I'll be tackling on the prep front. This is actually a nice and simple one, which after yesterday's adventures is kind of all I can handle. First, I will make a simple lemon vinaigrette. After de-stemming the kale, I will slice it into thin ribbons. Then I'll top it with lemon zest, red and black pepper, and Parmesan. I'll dress the salad, toss everything together, and add even more shaved Parmesan on top. All right, let's dive in. With the salad prepared, it is now time for my second attempt with the roasted butternut squash pizza with sage and Gruyère. First, I'll proof the dough for a couple of hours at room temperature. Then I will face down the trauma of my first attempt at this pizza and use a mandolin to slice the squash. That said, a knife would work just fine here too. I'll coat the squash slices with some olive oil and salt and then roast until they're tender. Meanwhile, I will grate the Gruyère. And I'll heat some olive oil in a skillet with sage, garlic, and red pepper flakes. After stretching out the pizza dough rounds, I will top each one with some creme fraiche, squash slices, brush on that sage oil, and top everything with Gruyère. All right, let's do it. All right, let's talk about how everything tasted. The salad was simple and lovely. I loved getting a kick of lemon from both the zest and the dressing. I've noticed that with the kale salads in this book, and just in general, I enjoy them more as they sit with the dressing for longer and soften up a bit, so I think I will continue to do that moving forward. This salad wasn't a home run for me like some of the other salads in the book have been, but it was easy, healthy, tasty, and frankly, that's all I needed after the end of a long day. So on that front, this recipe delivered. Despite the traumatic incident that kicked all of this off, the pizza was a home run. We were way more focused on enjoying the flavors than we were reliving that incident with the mandolin. There's just something about warm, cheesy carbs that screams comfort food, which was exactly what we needed. The spicy red pepper flakes and the tangy creme fraiche made sure that this pizza wasn't too one-note and rich, which I really enjoyed. And I absolutely adored the aromatic sage oil that we brushed over the top of the squash slices. That was such a nice touch. This pizza was autumn on a plate, so despite everything, we will definitely be having it again. All right. That's it for this week. Next time, I will be back to make even more pizza and salad to share with you. In the meantime, I hope you try this recipe at home. If you do, be safe with your mandolin and hop into the comments and let me know how it went for you. I would love to know.